Stellar Fundraising Auctions presents Black Tie and Tails, brought to you by Sojourn Ventures and Greater Giving, and featuring your hosts, fundraising auctioneers Greg Quiroga and Devon Bell. Place the song.
Taylor Swift, y'all.
Welcome to Black Tie and Tails, our auditory journey into the wonderful world of fundraising auctions where we share tales of triumph and tragedy. I am your host, Greg Quiroga. I'm joined by my co-host, Devon Bell.
Hello, all.
It's great to see you, Devo.
Likewise.
And it's good to see you here. And we consult on a fair number of events every year, meet with clients in advance as early as we can to get started on the planning process, get asked a lot of questions. And our number one question is...
what's a good thing to sell? What lots are good?
What auction lot's hot right now?
What's a good auction lot?
And as much as I know that question's coming, I freaking hate it. I hate it. And the reason I hate it isn't because I hate being asked questions, and it's not because it's not an obvious question. It's because there's no simple answer.
No. What's a good auction lot? You know, the same thing that's a great auction lot at this event is a terrible auction lot at this event. Or the same thing that's a great lot at this event is a terrible lot next year at the same event.
Yeah. It varies so wildly from event to event, because people ask well, what's your favorite auction lot? And I'm like, okay, my favorite auction lot, and I've sold this. Chevron is a big sponsor of the Manhattan Wine Auction, and for years they used to donate Chevron to the Masters. So private plane, fly you to Augusta, where you're going to spend 4 nights and 5 days in a luxury hotel with all your food and everything taken care of. Every day in the morning, a shuttle's going to show up and whisk you off to Augusta National, where you're going to have access to Chevron's luxury suite and access to the full grounds to watch the Masters take place. And that's my dream auction lot. I would love to go do that. Can you get it? Probably not. And if you had it, would it sell for as much as it did at this other event, or as much as it's worth?
No.
Probably not.
And maybe at your event, there's people who would be like, I don't want that golf package, even if I got it for free.
Right. Yeah. I mean, and so the lot question, it's a tough one. But that said, I think we both have a lot of examples, but of our some of the favorite things we've sold and not so favorite things we've sold. And I think we can both tell this story. So here, tag team with me, because our dear departed friend Ed was sitting on a committee and having the conversation that we have so often about trying to find something that is the best-selling auction lots or experiences or relationships, right? That which you cannot price. And they're sitting around the table, and it's all moms and one other dad, and this other dad raises his hand and says,
"Is this Zamboni?"
No, it's Quarry.
Okay, we'll go Quarry first. Says, I can. The dad raises a hand and says, "How about we auction off blowing up the mountain?"
Yes.
And say, what now? What?
He's like, I own a quarry, and the way that we free up the rock is to, blow up the side of the mountain. So I'd be willing to sell the opportunity to
he's doing the Wile E. Coyote,
push a plunger
right,
and blow up the mountain.
Yeah.
And that becomes that school's biggest selling auction lot. And the donor feels a little pressured to make it good, so he adds a barbecue to it.
Right? Didn't they dress it up with a nice dinner and say,
barbecue? Got to have a bunch of go with your friends. You have a barbecue, watch you blow up the mountain, and it does so well. It sells for the most anything's ever sold for at that school, that the next year they add afterwards, everybody 10 people, 5 adults, 5 kids, get to go down into the base of the quarry and operate heavy machinery.
Oh, that's great.
Right?
And scrape around all the stuff you just blew up.
Right. And obviously not California, because California is a litigious society that wouldn't allow that to happen. But where it did take place, it was and we've both told that story. The other story that we've told, obviously, is a sharks related story.
Okay. This is the Zamboni story. I got this from Ed and appropriated it for myself. Actually, I had an event once where I had taken it over either for Ed or for you. I'm having
I know where this is going.
Yeah, I'm having the meeting.
It was BCE.
Yeah, probably.
You took it over from me.
Yeah, Burlingame Community Education Foundation, and I'm having the meeting with the parents about how you can procure lots.
Right.
So I said, here. both these stories are along the lines of, don't just go and ask for something specific. Go and say, we're having an event. How can you help? Because sometimes they'll have something you won't know. And so I said, oh, well, have you heard the quarry story? And they all said, yes. And I'm like, oh, okay. Have you heard the Zamboni story? And they all looked a little irritated and say, yeah, we've heard that story too. And then kind of at a loss because I was early on. I didn't know how to proceed. But anyway, here's the Zamboni story. For years at this school, they had one of the parents at this school it was for years they had Sharks tickets.
Right.
And every year, and this is, remember, early on when the Sharks were usually pretty good.
The Sharks made the playoffs the first 19 years they were in existence.
Correct. And they're the only hockey team in all of Northern California.
Right.
And San Jose is an affluent community.
Yes.
So a lot lines up there for them to do well. And they did always do well. It'd be just 2 tickets to a game with nothing else added to it. And they'd sell for $500, $800, $1,200.
Right.
They do just fine. Till one year when they were out soliciting donations, it turns out that one of the parents or something, their brother was the guy who drove the Zamboni.
Right.
At the Sharks game. And so instead of just Sharks tickets,
it was a chance for one person to ride the Zamboni between periods where they would go to ride around and clean off the ice
and fly the flag of the school.
Right.
The flag of the school.
And obviously that changed the nature of that auction lot. And I love the fact that there are so many sports related access stuff like this that started off as a person with a good idea. And then it turned into the sports team monetizing it.
Yes.
Because now you can go buy the chance to ride on the Zamboni as part of a sponsor package. You can buy at the San Francisco Giants, you can buy the opportunity for your kid to read off the names of the first 3 players at the bottom of the third, right? Yeah. To be the Giants junior announcer. You can purchase the opportunity for your kid to, for you and a few other people to ride around with Lucille shooting the t-shirt cannon, right? But those used to be things that were only available through donations because somebody with a great idea had that stuff. And it circles back. I keep trying to bring it back to the thing, like access. Like
you said it so perfectly. In the world of the internet, where anything that's available to anyone is available to anyone.
Right.
You can go online, click, 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 boom, and you buy it with a credit card. But a level above that, Greg has said this before, and I shamelessly appropriate it to talk to my clients. This is dinner at a fancy restaurant. Great. Actually, anyone can get that. But a special chef's dinner in a special room for you in that restaurant just moved up a notch.
Yep.
And having that chef come to your house and cook it at your house, now we're moving into priceless territory.
Yes.
We're moving into irrational philanthropy.
Yes.
It goes people, experiences, and then things.
Yes, exactly. And one of my favorite auction lot stories is for years I worked with an organization that had been founded by a man named Elliot Crames. And Elliot Crames would host dinner in his home with his wife Rosellen, and they would pair it with wines from their cellar, and they would have 8 people. And that event, that organization did 2 auctions a year, one in San Francisco, one in Philadelphia, and that would be the biggest selling auction lot at their auction every year. Both auctions every year. Dinner with Dr. Elliott and his wife. And yet, if you took that lot to any other organization, it'd be like, who? Right. What? Right. Why is he here? And so I think the moral of that story is, who's your celebrity? Right? Who's
celebrity to you?
Right. Who's the celebrity to your crowd? Who are your bidders who are your bidders? Because how many times have you had, there's an honoree or a CEO of the organization or whatever, and it's lunch with that person.
Yes.
Right? Or dinner with that person. I've had lunch. So we were doing an honoree dinner, and the CEO of a company was being honored, and he had 3 tables at the auction, and lunch with him was one of the biggest selling auction lots that day. Right? Because his tables were all bidding on it.
Yeah.
So is his wife, which lent it.
To have lunch with him sometimes.
Yeah, exactly. That was the first joke. He's so busy, you can't get access to him. And then I'm off doing numbers. I'm like, wait, I can think of something more supportive than that. I can support her in this moment. I'm like, oh, I get it. You're trying to keep this riffraff away, right? And she laughed. There you go.
Another example of that is when you have like a buy-in or a count me in.
Okay.
You know, like sometimes at an organization, so-and-so has their condo in Hawaii and it does fine. And then they offer it the next year and it does fine. But at a certain point, everyone who wanted to go went.
Yes.
And it turns out last year, the person who bought it didn't even use it and just donated it back. But if you're trading on social relationships, if you're at a school where people love hanging out with each other, then you have a buy-in party, a count me in party where it's the same old thing every year and it sells out right away.
Yep.
It doesn't get stale. It gains cachet because people got FOMO and they don't want to miss out on the party.
Yeah. Instagram.
Right.
And in the lifespan of an auction lot, it's okay to give a lot a break.
Oh yeah.
Right. If a lot's underperforming. So if it started off way up here and then over the course of the last 3 years, it's starting to trend down, give it a break, give it a year off, or find a different way to repurpose it. Make it a raffle item or do something else with it. Let's take a sponsor hit really quick and to let you know that Black Tie and Tails is brought to you by our sponsors, Sojourn Ventures. When your auction is in need of some international travel, check out Sojourn Ventures. They curate trips to Italy, and they just added Venice to their Italian catalog.
Visit Venice before it disappears under the water.
Which is good because you've got 2 years. 2 years is just enough time to get there before I'm sure Venice will be there in 2 years. Visit Italy, Bali, and now Spain at reasonable consignment prices. Sojourn Ventures offers over a dozen curated packages that include round-trip airport transfers, full-body massages, daily breakfasts, in-home chef's dinners, and more. Your buyers will enjoy top-level concierge service and two full years to redeem their trip, all at reasonable consignment prices. Check out sojournventurestravel.com or look for the link in the bio of this podcast.
And something I'll say about a consignment lot like that is sometimes we talk about a consignment lot in terms of, well, hold up, we'd love something that was completely underwritten, right? So that all the money goes to the organization instead of there being a middleman taking some. But sometimes a consignment lot is perfect because it'll be a kind of lot that you don't already have, or it'll be a lot that'll match your theme. And of course, the great thing about a consignment lot is you can always double it or triple it.
Well, and that's a great point about consignment lots, because consignment lots, we often talk about consignment lots as being back pocket, right? You keep it in your back pocket, you pull it out if you need it. And one of the places where you need it is if you have a Parisian themed auction, a Parisian themed event, Moulin Rouge, to flash back to the last episode, and you don't have something French in the auction, you're missing an opportunity, right? And so to find I know Sojourn doesn't do Paris. I'm sorry for Sojourn, but for that example,
themed event,
right? You're doing an Italian themed event, or to pull a consignment package into there makes complete sense. And I was gonna go ahead.
No, you're right on. I was gonna say sometimes you have a wine package, you have a dining experience, you have a local trip, but you don't have an air travel trip. It's nice to have a close trip that you can drive to, and a far trip that you can fly to. And sometimes a consignment package will slot in there perfectly.
I say that when it comes to having travel in your auction, it's fine to have up to a quarter or even a third of your auction be trips. They just need a variety of D's: distance, destination, and duration. Right. You got to be able to
a weekend, a week. Yeah.
Right. A drive versus a short flight versus, Bali's a long flight. Right. You're not going to Bali for 2 nights.
No, it's literally the opposite side of the world.
Right. Yeah. It's a long flight. So you better be having a week if you're going to go to Bali. Hawaii from California, you can get away for 4 nights. Right. That's a short enough flight that an extended weekend makes sense. And when talking about auction lots, trips tend to be retail. Right? Like it tends to be like, if you're going to Hawaii, it tends to be like, if you don't know how to have a good time in Hawaii, you need to go to Hawaii and figure out how to have a good time. Right. Yeah. That's one of my jokes. Like there's so much there that you don't, and it's hard as mainlanders to get Hawaii trips rounded out.
Yeah. What I'll say is, here's all these wonderful things you can do, or you can just do nothing at all and be in Hawaii.
Yeah. Or my line is, there's world-class scuba diving, snorkeling, parasailing, shopping, fine dining, or wait for it, relaxing.
Yeah.
Remember when we used to go on vacation and relax?
Right.
You know, talking about auction lots, one of the things that just doesn't do well, I mean, jewelry. I've got a jewelry story. That just reminds me of a classic jewelry story. So jewelry is always extremely challenging in an auction.
Like art, jewelry is not a oh what the heck decision. It's a contemplative decision. You have a relationship with this piece of jewelry. Either you like it or you don't.
It takes two people to buy a piece of jewelry.
Right. The one who buys it and the one who wears it, or
yeah. I mean, or like there's like art. It takes two people to buy to agree on one bid on a piece of art. Right. Jewelry, it doesn't. Jewelry is a little less like that, but it's still. It's very subjective. And one of the challenges, and I can say this having come from a long line of jewelers, right? I think I was the first in 4 or 5 generations to not be a jeweler. I worked in a jewelry store for a week, and I'm like, God, no. But I can say this is that jewelers tend to overvalue their donations.
Yeah, if you I'm sure the audience at home has seen this before. The value of jewelry is often talked about like in insurance terms,
right?
And that's not what you would pay for that piece of jewelry.
Right. You're looking at, so the jewelers donate stuff and it's at retail. And we all know that if you just even have the least amount of haggling skills, you can get most jewelry stores, the retail doesn't stick. I get this piece set for an auction. And at this point, this particular auction, we've never had anything sell for more than like $10,000-$12,000. And I'd seen the list of lots before this meeting. This is pre-pandemic time, so we met in person, right? I'd seen the list of lots, and I was like, oh, wait, so show me the jewelry, because it was an earring and necklace set valued at $15,000, right? So the most expensive thing we've ever had in this auction. And they slide it across the table, and I open it up and I look, I was like, the earrings and the necklace don't match.
Oh my God.
And they said, oh, we were hoping you wouldn't notice. I'm like, what? They're like, yeah, they don't. They're from different. I'm like, oh my God. So $15,000 mismatched jewelry set.
Yeah, if I noticed, believe me, the person dropping 15K is going to notice.
So normally I start the bidding at half of the value, right? So I'm like, I would want to start the bidding at $7,500, and this client agreed. They're like, okay, but and normally I don't like to fall back from an opening bid, but in this case,
that's giving up your power.
Right, yeah. But in this case, we all agreed like I would work $7,500 for 10, 15 seconds, and then I had a fallback of 35.
Yeah,
right. We go a quarter of value and go. And so lo and behold, open at $7,500. Nobody, nothing, not a zip, zero, zilch, working it, trying to go. It's half price, blah, 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 blah. Okay, $3,500 and get one bid. And I'm like, great, sweet, thanks. Trying to work it, sold. And they're like, they
were just being nice.
They literally said to me after the auction, I felt bad for you. I bid on that because I felt bad for you. It was a sympathy bid, dude.
Oh.
So jewelry's up there. Most like other retail stuff, like if somebody's to ask you like, what's the craziest thing you've ever sold in a bad way?
Well, that phenomenon you've said, where we went out at half the value and it's crickets. And then I say, oh, I'm sorry, I should have explained. I say amounts of money, you raise your paddle. It's not $7,500, it's $3,500. And at that moment, you're just hoping for one paddle,
right.
This one paddle to get me out here. Because the next thing you have to do, if there's any kind of, you can't drop it again, right? That's over. The next thing you could do is the dreaded, okay, we found the screaming bargain of the night. If anyone comes to their senses, you can get it on your way out.
Right.
Please let the person who made this jewelry not be in the room.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I sold a truckload of manure once.
Okay.
It was technically, they called it compost, but
auctioning off shit, and I mean that literally.
Yeah, that was the line. The next, they're up next. There's a ton of shit, and I'm not. I mean that literally. I've sold Botox.
I've sold Botox too.
In San Francisco and Los Angeles.
Okay.
And
wait, we both sold tree trimming and that the transfer load of aggregate.
Right. And aggregate, for those not in the know, is rock.
Yeah, it's buying a bunch of gravel.
Yeah, buying a bunch of gravel. Quarter ton of rock. Yeah. And in that same auction one year, we had fuel oil.
What the heck?
Like
Doomsday Prepper auction.
That and wine. Yeah. We were good to go.
What more do you need?
What do you need? Rock to bury your compound, right? Fuel oil to keep it going, and wine so you don't notice the end of the world.
So you can forget that you paid for all this.
But Botox in San Francisco and Los Angeles. And in San Francisco, it was a little bit harder sell. The first time in Los Angeles, and then years later in San Francisco, and it did fine again. It was easy peasy.
I did once at a junior high. They auctioned off braces.
No,
That's knowing your crowd.
Yeah.
So that's not going to do well at every auction.
I had elementary and middle school in North Carolina, and doing the consulting, and I'm going to look at the list of lots, and I'm like, so let's talk about the braces lot.
Oh,
because it was one of the most valuable. It was $4,200, and they said our crowd loves it.
Right.
This is one of the best selling lots. Okay, great. Know your crowd.
Yep.
Right. Know your crowd. And lo and behold, it went.
Yep. And remember that that past performance is no guarantee of future results.
Yes.
And I think we both share this story about the school, the private school, expensive private school that sold the parking lot, right front and center you get it for the whole year.
Right.
And it sold for $20,000. Okay. Hallelujah. This is one of our hot performers. And the next year it sold for $2,000. So just know that the same auction lot won't necessarily do well across different organizations or even across time.
Yeah, even different crowds.
Yep.
Every time you hold your event, you have fleeting philanthropic potential that exists in this moment of time only.
That's a nice turn of phrase.
And if you do not capitalize on that moment, if you do not take full advantage of whatever your event staff and committee and all the work you have done to create that moment, if you don't capitalize on that moment, then it dissipates.
Yeah.
It's not there ever again.
No.
And
moment in space
there's no A/B testing in our world.
Right.
There's no let's come back and do this again differently. No, there's you just never know. We talked about here. Let's hit Black Tie and Tails is brought to you by our partner Greater Giving. Transform your nonprofit's fundraising initiatives with Greater Giving. They are a global payments company. They deliver unparalleled support for nonprofits and schools. They've been doing it for over 2 decades. From effortless event organization to volunteer empowerment and increased donations, their integrated solutions pave the way for success. Explore their offerings. Access a wealth of educational materials at greatergiving.com.
Greater Giving, wonderful, and that's why they've been a partner of Stellar since the very beginning.
Very, very beginning. Now, we talk about this a lot in the Bay Area. We're blessed to have well-performing sports teams.
Oh yeah,
and
I know just where you're going.
And their auction lots often do great as long as the team's doing great. So 2010, 12, 14, San Francisco Giants packages were all the rage.
Right.
2009, you could barely sell tickets.
That's right. How were Warrior tickets doing in 2009?
2009, Warriors were the best bargain on the block,
That's
right?
$12.
The only thing that sold worse than Warriors tickets were A's tickets, and that's just the A's have never ever been a popular fundraising auction lot in the Bay Area. But yeah, the Warriors. We'd have I remember having floor Warriors tickets that were valued at $1,500 each, and begging to get the bidding going at $1,500 for the both of them, and then they win one championship.
Right. You brought me in. I started doing auctions with Stellar and with Greg in 2014, so I've been doing it 10 years. And if you know the Bay Area sports and you know the Warriors, 2014 was kind of the sweet spot for Warriors. That's right when they went from nothing to being the masters of the basketball universe. And we had several years of amazing Warrior ticket, just like the arc was up and up and up. But what I noticed, Greg, and perhaps you saw the same thing, is that we got to a point of almost, not that the Warriors weren't still successful, because they were. It was just, it dropped off a little.
Super saturation.
It was Warrior fatigue.
Super saturation.
If you wanted to see the Warriors and you had money, you already had. If you wanted to see them in the playoffs and you had money, you probably had already seen them. If you wanted to see them in the finals, you had lots of opportunities. So,
and then they moved to Chase Center.
Right.
And then it was like, oh, that bumped back up. Right. Yeah. Because like, oh, it's a new space. And, oh, it's a fancy venue. And, oh, look at all the incredible, like all of the behind the scenes. And
yeah, so true.
And the art. But then it starts doing that thing again.
Right. It happens over time. And like you said, what'd you say? It's a fleeting philanthropic moment.
Yes.
Perfect. When our clients ask us, what's hot? What's a hot auction lot? Those change from year to year. We made our bread and butter on Taylor Swift for an entire year.
Back in 2016.
Right.
2016, she was
just coming, and I'm sure that's going to be even crazier.
Yep.
We made so much money for 2 years selling Hamilton.
Oh, yes.
When Hamilton first started coming into our auctions, you could sell a pair of tickets to Hamilton. No meal, no hotel, no nothing, and it would go for thousands of dollars. Big battles between bidders. So,
and this is straight retail, right? I mean, so we're talking about access, right? And we're talking about access to that which you cannot buy, right? And so if you can't get tickets to the hottest show on Broadway, then tickets to the hottest show on Broadway are our big selling thing, right? If it transcends into phenomenon, Hamilton transcended into phenomenon.
Well said. So did the Warriors. So there's a time, like normally if you say tickets to a basketball game, you could take a certain percentage of the crowd and just cut them out.
Nope.
They have no interest in basketball. They couldn't even tell you who's on the team. But there comes a moment when something is so big, like the Warriors in the Bay Area in the mid-teens, where everyone knew the name Steph Curry, even if they're not a basketball fan.
Yeah.
Right? Like you perfectly said, Hamilton, people that didn't have the slightest interest in theater were paying big bucks to go see Hamilton.
Yep. Yeah, or because their kids wanted to go see Hamilton, right?
Their kids wanted to see Taylor Swift, but
right, yeah.
What you mean?
No, there were the Hamilton was huge in the middle school.
It was
like my son learned the lyrics to every freaking song. I'm like, what is this?
What are you doing?
I mean, I can't blame him. I still know all the lyrics to Les Miserables, but like
theater guy, okay?
Look down, don't look him in the eye.
We're not doing this.
But that brings us to another type of auction lot, though, is the auction lots for the kids, right? Like, especially in schools or where you have grandparents, but giving people the opportunity to purchase something that isn't for them, but for somebody in their family or in their orbit.
Yeah, and that can take on a lot of looks. I mean, a classic one is a lock-in at the school where they get to go crazy and run around and eat pizza and watch movies and do things at the school they don't normally get to do. Or you have a beloved teacher host a blah blah blah. That almost presents an interesting opportunity for like 6 degrees of FOMO. It's not that you'll miss out. You don't want your kid to miss out. Right. You don't want your kid to miss out. If kids are doing it.
I'm not a huge fan of selling puppies in auctions, right? If you're going to sell a puppy in an auction, then it better come with training and vetting, and there has to be the right to not let the family take it if they're not qualified to take it. Yep. But if you're going to sell a puppy at your school auction, send the puppy to school and have kids take Polaroids with the puppy and send those Polaroids home and market the F out of it, because if you're going to do it, go whole hog, right? You're like, don't hold back. And then the same could be said for, buy-ins. We love buy-ins. My favorite buy-in, I'll stand by this till I stop doing it. My favorite buy-in is because if these are your people or not. Sushi, sake, and karaoke.
There you go.
Right off the bat. Like a big percentage of the people listening were just like, oh my gosh. But the people were like, those are my people. You're going to overspend on that lot. But it's just a narrative. In the first, like sushi, sake, and 4 words, and I have created a story that we have created a story that some people want to buy into. And I think the best way to summarize and wrap is that when you're creating auction lots, you're trying to create tiny individual individual narratives, little stories that engage people and make them want to be a part of it, whether it's FOMO or just wanting to be interested and engaged in that, or wanting to have that relationship,
or
right?
Competitive.
Right.
Yep.
You're creating a narrative that people can buy into literally and figuratively.
Yeah, that's right. Whether it's reflecting the zeitgeist, whether it's reflecting the culture of your organization, and then sometimes it's just cool things, right?
Yeah.
I want to blow up a mountain. I want to ride a Zamboni.
Yeah. I one of the coolest auction lots I've ever sold, because the donor came back and told me about it, was to sit in the dugout with Bruce Bochy, the then manager of the Giants, for batting practice before a game. And they were guaranteed 15 minutes, and he let him sit there for 45 minutes, and they hung out and chatted and talked baseball, and then he made sure that all the players signed stuff for them, and then they got to sit in great seats and watch a game. And they told that a year later they were still bubbling about it.
Oh yeah,
right. I mean, it's giving people access. So I mean, I think the best types of auction lots are ones that meet your donors where they want to be.
Take it from the pro.
Thank you for tuning in and listening to this episode of Black Tie and Tails. Thank you, Devon, for being here with me as always. Thank you, listeners. If you are looking for places to find this podcast, I recommend trying Apple or Spotify or YouTube or any of your other favorite podcast distribution channels. You can also find it at blacktieandtails.com. Thanks for listening. Be sure to tune in next time when we'll talk about something else related to fundraising auctions, I'm sure.
Very vague.